Boom, sneak attack. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Guest Quest, the TTRPG community interview stream brought to you by the Gimme the Loot podcast, the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition actual play podcast that remembered all of the intro this time. My name's Turner. I will be taking us around the horn here with the crew tonight as we talk to Drew Coons from the First Watch podcast and stream. Drew, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here with everybody.
Fantastic, man. Well, we appreciate you joining us. We right after, I think it was PAX Unplugged, Jeremy Cobb reached out and was like, hey man, Drew's a really solid guy, would love to come on and talk about his show, and how could we say no? So we're super glad to have you join us to talk about your stream and D&D, the very, very calm and measured and blasé world of actual play. Nothing exciting has happened there.
Zero controversy.
Zero controversy. Joining us tonight to talk to Drew are
Tori. Okay. To be fair, one, I'm new.
Yeah.
Using that until my character is even on the show. And two, I just got a stream deck and I just figured out the mute button, but I put it right next to the tweet button, the button that I click and it just sends out a tweet, and I needed to make sure I didn't do that.
I need to see if our boy Meeseeks actually put we just converted our Discord over to a community server and added Meeseeks and from a straight Patreon server, and I'm still figuring out exactly what all the buttons do. So okay. In addition to Tori, who's missing an intro, is very fastly becoming a bit.
It's me. I'm Harlan, and I play Todd on the Give Me the Loot podcast.
You know what I think? Every time you do the "it's me," I think of fucking Enola Holmes and the girl who plays 11. What's her name? Somebody quick, give me 11's.
Billy,
actress, Millie Bobby Brown.
Millie Bobby Brown. Yeah, Millie Bobby Brown. Yes.
Okay, we're just gonna move on because none of that was right.
That is right.
Millie Bobby Brown.
That's her name.
Yeah,
that's Millie Bobby Brown. I thought I made that up.
Yeah. No, I thought you guys started.
It actually does sound like you made that up.
You guys checked your swings from Billie Eilish, like you all went Billie Eilish, no Brown, Billy Bob Thornton, like it got weird. So up next.
Oh, it's me. It's Jamie. I play Eldrin on Give Me the Loot. Sorry, it's been a bit since I did one of these. I don't think I've been on stream all month. So.
It's been like 2 weeks. And take us home, Anthony.
And I'm Anthony, who plays Baba Tunde on the Give Me the Loot podcast. And I've never missed an intro.
That's true. But you are coming in with a pretty low bar. So we rolled initiative backstage. Everybody, the question order will be Anthony, Harland, Jamie, Tori. Remember, ask single question. If you have a follow-up, bonus action. If you have a follow-up to somebody else's question, reaction, you're absolutely able to grab questions from the chat at any time as a resource. So everybody who's out there in the chat, hop on, get the questions for the crew, and then I will lead us off to make it easy for everybody. So Drew, you guys just started your second season for the First Watch. Do you guys primarily stream and rebroadcast as a podcast, or primarily broadcast that you stream the recordings of?
Yeah, so we pre-record everything, and then we don't technically stream per se. Sometimes we do like YouTube premieres and stuff, but mostly everything just goes up on YouTube and then podcast channels. And we've been doing the pre-recorded thing since the inception of the show, because at the very, very beginning, pre-COVID, we were like we were going for like a 3-4 camera setup. We were filming it in my living room, and we were kind of taking that approach, a little bit more of a Relics and Rarities Dimension 20 type feel. Yeah. Just in my living room, so low budget. And then we've just kind of kept that format as we've switched over to webcams and doing everything virtually because of the pandemic. But then now we have a cast all the way across the country and even international because we have someone from Canada. So webcams is the way to go.
Yeah, so you guys are, but you would say probably then that, but you're more primarily video than audio necessarily. Yeah, you do the podcast piece, but the video
Yeah, the
is
podcast is really just ripping the audio from the video. So our little intro kind of nods to that and says, for the full experience, go
Right.
check out our YouTube channel.
Yeah, because we're the inverse for the podcast content, and then for this content, like
Yeah.
this will get rebroadcast out in our made podcast theme, which is really where the majority of our audience is. We just do this because we get to meet some really cool people with it, and it's stuff that I have to edit much less. All right, going into initiative order, Anthony, you're up.
All right, so looking kind of at your YouTube, and I did a little kind of searching through the YouTube, and I noticed that like you have kind of these different like you have Wasteland and the Inn and then the Knights of Acacia, and or if I'm saying that right,
Excessa.
Excessa. It the picture wasn't fully formed on my computer, but yeah. So like, are those different arcs of same season, or like how does that work? How do those?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, I would have cleaned up some of the naming conventions a little more to not make it confusing because we were just kind of rolling with whatever felt right. But our first campaign, we broke into 3 arcs called Realm Shield, Wasteland, and why am I blanking on the last one? I'll remember it here in a minute. But that was kind of our first campaign. And then we had all these spin-off things. So whether it was a one-shot or a mini camp, like a 3-session thing or whatnot. And we gave all those cool names. The concept of the show is that it's genre driven. So even though it's all set in the same world, if we're spinning off into another, mini series, we're picking like a movie genre to go off of, whether that's action adventure, whether that's horror, whether that's cozy Hallmark, type things. And so each one of those has a different feel. Plane Break. That's the name of the 3rd arc of the first season.
Okay, cool.
You know what's actually funny is that question of all the questions you could have asked, that was actually one of the first question I was going to ask that Anthony just said, because I was looking at an interview that you did and you explained how easy it is for someone to just walk in to you explained a good point to come in, and I was wondering, well, that must mean you're not doing full campaign arcs, like you break them up. You called it one season, but in between, I guess you do break them up into like 3-parters and things like that. And that was actually my first question. Next, I guess my other question now, since that was taken, would be on that interview.
Can we just hold on? I'm gonna interrupt for a second here. Can we just like this whole format exists now? So you guys would stop saying I took your question.
It is. That's what I'm saying. That's what's so crazy about the fact that
say
that
the
was
guy
my
in
question.
initiative order prior to you took your question.
I had one question.
We're doing this
That's what's
complicated ass
crazy
shit
about
now
it.
because y'all kept pulling that. So no.
That's crazy. All I mentioned was that it was crazy. I have a follow-up question, a backup question.
Okay,
I'm prepared, sir.
Yeah, this is an hour-long
He's calling for time right now.
You're going to
Listen, I was going into my next question to you interject.
I was gonna kill that minion, but then Anthony did it first.
There you go.
So on that interview, I saw that you was wearing these very blue glasses, and I couldn't get through to it. I was like, those glasses are very blue, and I was expecting to see them today, but I see the red glasses. Is that a Pokemon thing? Because I'm seeing the Pokemon in the background. I see the red and then the blue.
Years ago I had a pair of white kind of like thick framed glasses, and it started to become like my thing. Like I was doing a lot of freelance video, and it was like someone was like, you should brand your whole company around that. And I was like, I don't know about that. And then I got the blue ones, which lasted quite a while, but
those stood out.
Yeah, they did. Eventually those just those they didn't last. And yeah, I like these now. They've got the blue blockers and all that good stuff, but I do think I may have to switch it up next time I order again.
Man, you should probably just go with the blue frames again. I was like, the interview I was watching, I was like, man, those are very blue.
So I'll tell you the dirty secret of why I switched.
Okay.
My face is not, perfectly symmetrical. My ears are ever so slightly different. So on those plastic blue frames, I, at least watching myself being recorded all the time, could notice that my glasses were sitting at an angle. And it was driving me nuts. So I was like, let me get some wire frames I can bend a little bit more, make fit my face, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Why do you think my camera's at a 45-degree angle, Drew? Because I too wear glasses normally. They don't fit great with this headset. And when I'm doing this, it's all like, God damn it, good. And I'm doing it in reverse. It's a whole dance.
I feel you. Yeah.
All right. Jamie.
Just wanted to know kind of what your experience with Dungeons and Dragons has been. Like, when did you start playing? How long have you been playing?
The secret origin story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a very cliche answer, and that is that I started watching Critical Role and got really into it. And from there, very quickly was like, maybe not at that level, but we could do that. And so we had started playing, my friend Joe and I, who is in several of the shows. And very quickly, we're like, this would be so much fun to record and have a second game in addition to our home game that we could work on. So I'm 2018, I think, is when we started. I'm pretty fresh to the whole hobby. But like, I think a lot of people who have gotten into this, had an extensive history with fantasy and, just a Narnia and Tolkien and Redwall kid growing up. And so this, finally get to do the thing, in pretend, but do the thing that you're reading about all the time.
Cool. Tori?
So I'm very curious about your very first character that you created and their backstory, what they were. I'm not trying to put you on blast and say it's that everybody first character, it's a bit of a self-insert, but I feel like I'd like to get to know who your first character was.
100%. So I played a pre-gen character my first couple of times playing D&D, and then I immediately started DMing. I was the kind of the de facto DM for the group, and so I didn't get to play at least for a real campaign for a while. And when I did, it was with a friend in their 3.5 game. And so I played a half elf named Elris, who had a French accent and was a little bit older than the other players. They were all playing teenagers, and he was coming in as like a 30-ish-year-old. And he was an asshole. Like, he just absolutely was. He was a jerk. He was self-centered. He was arrogant towards them. And I had a ton of fun playing him. I got to develop him a little bit and soften him over time. I also learned that lesson that I think a lot of us learn early on, in that playing the jerk character can cause some inter-party conflict, and that's not always fun. And, eventually I retired him and brought in a more maybe group-friendly character. But he still holds a dear spot in my heart because he went through a lot, and, he became very angry at the world. But I think if I had kept playing him, he could have found his way.
See, we solved that problem by having all 5 cast members play the jerk character.
It's true.
And in doing so,
Amazing.
it's like when you try and put like 4 or 5 magnets
The
with
alpha
same,
jerk.
same pole against each other. Yeah, they just bounce off each other.
Bob is not a jerk.
Todd is definitely not a jerk. Todd
But
just does what's
Bob,
right.
Bob has got his own set of issues. He's not the worst.
That's true.
He's not the worst, but he has made some questionable decisions. Baba is the vacation dad that was like, we got to stay on schedule. And if that means I have to do some morally compromising activities to make sure that we get to the park at 7 a.m. and get good parking, that was Baba's energy for the last good number of sessions.
I will give you that.
That's its own special. You better pee now, because the Winnow Major ain't stopping, Baba. Is not necessarily.
Don't make me come back there.
So when you guys break up the individual arcs, and I think this is probably a little bit easier with doing it on YouTube, although I'm certainly sure you can do it on podcast streams as well. But your new season is a completely new story, same setting, or
same setting 27 years later, because spoilers, there's a big event that happens at the end of our first season that has some kingdom-wide impacts that I was like, well, let's do a time jump. Let's I want to be in the same world. I've spent a lot of time developing this world, but I don't want it to be a direct sequel or continuation. And for the first time, our new season is more of an open-ended, so we've released as of today 14 episodes, but we've recorded almost 30. And it's going to be a much more we'll just go until the wheels fall off type thing, rather than kind of these mini things. But yeah, same setting, a little bit later. But we've already found, it's not so far removed that some of the remnants of the past and some of the NPCs and whatnot that they've started to pop up here and there in the new game.
Cool. Anthony?
I'm going to do something that I'm not sure has been done before on our thing. I'm going to bonus action before my action. And I'm going to say, if you don't mind, could you answer this question in that French accent that your character has?
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I'll allow it.
Damn it.
I will allow it.
So I was going through, I was scrolling down your Twitter timeline. And I saw that you had an injury that you said you gained on a half pipe, and I was curious as to if that was on a skateboard or were you inline. Like, what was the situation there? What happened? What went wrong?
I apologize to everybody of the wonderful nation of France for what I'm about to do. It was not on a skateboard or inline skates or anything like that. It was on a scooter, actually. My young son and I have begun skating together in order to spend some quality time. We found an indoor skate park because it is in Minnesota and the winter is very, very, very harsh here. And I am almost 34 years old, and I am not built for scootering. And I took the half pipe a little faster than I should have, and my knee felt it for the next several days. Yes.
Good job, sir. Good
Very
job.
well.
Yeah, it was good. Great job.
But imagine having to listen to that for just sessions on end, or it was.
Yeah, that's what the voices
every French
inside
person
do.
I know would have been proud.
Yeah. I took 2 years of French in high school. I have imaginary voices in my head in that accent. So good job. I love a good fake French accent. Arlen?
Okay, so I was looking at same interview I was watching. You talked about your I guess I'm sorry, I'm lost words, but the way you DM, you said it was like doing public speaking, and I thought that was pretty cool. Where you said that that when you do public speaking, some of it is written, but a lot of it just kind of flows as you go about doing it. How much of your DMing would you say is written versus how much are you just playing it off the cuff and improving with the people, and how much of your world actually gets regenerated or remade in the image you might not have even thought because of this improv?
I'd probably do about 5% planning. Honestly, 5%.
Wow.
Yeah, I wing a lot of stuff. For the new campaign, I did a little bit more upfront prep. Obviously, I had the campaign takes place in a city, so I really wanted to build out the city and know what shops there were and all that type of stuff. But my players have gotten to the point now where they'll message me after game and they'll be like, "That whole arc happened appeared mid-game, didn't it?" And I'm like, yeah, you made some decisions. And I was like, okay, now there's a beholder there. And here's how we're going to make it work. It's how I prefer playing. And I like running modules. I really do. Like that's how I started. And I really enjoy that type of DMing. But when I'm kind of doing my own thing, it's mostly improv. It bites me in the butt all the time because I'll say or do things that I won't make good notes on, or I'll do an NPC and forget what their accent or their name
I wouldn't know
was.
anything about that. How dare you? How dare you?
But it is fun, and I'm not the type of person who wants to be referencing my notes all the time. I think it breaks the flow of things. It takes me out of the game, and so I'd rather deal with some of those frustrations of memory and whatnot, and be present and be a part of what's happening.
Yeah, planning, there is an over planning extent where it just is completely pointless because you no matter how well you map it out, your players are always going to do some weird shit. And there is a balance that you have to strike for that. Less in, I think, home games than in production D&D. Like anything that is being produced for an audience, you're a little bit more constrained. But yeah, most DM's greatest secret is, yeah, man, like we have some bullet points and then we just go. So
this being the first time I've ever really played D&D, I'm seeing it. To me, I don't know what's behind the scenes. I've never done things, so watching Turner do it, to me, it always seems like the way I looked at it. So when you said 5%, that seemed like a very low number to me, because in my head I'm thinking, yeah, a lot of it is planned and you're improving to get them back on script the way you have in your head, versus just a little bit here and then we'll see how it goes. In my head, like when I think, how I would DM, I'm thinking I'm a plan it. And if they go on script, off script, let's try to veer them back in the way. Do you not veer them, or you just like, okay, we're off script now, let's just go with it, baby?
That's a real good question. I think it really depends on, first of all, I think it depends on the DM style, because I've played and seen games that do both of those types of things.
Yeah.
And they're all valid.
Yep.
For me, there's an element of, it depends on where we're at in the story. It depends on what I need to happen in order to advance things. And it's different in a recorded game than a home game. Home game, I don't care. Like this is what you want to do. You want to make a whole side quest about this weird shop owner. Like that's fine. Recorded games, sometimes there is something we're trying to shoot for, right? We record in 2-hour chunks. That's not very long compared to a lot of games out there. We have to keep the pace up. And so, but the players know that. They know that ahead of time. Or I can message one of them and give them a little nudge about, hey, don't forget about that NPC that gave you this quest or something. So, but case in point, recently coming up, not on the show yet, but there's a whole arc where they were supposed to figure out why rats were infesting a bakery. It's a little silly side quest. Next thing you know, there's a whole kingdom of rats with a monarch, and there's a beast down there that like they have to take out, and like they discovered a dwarven city because of that. Like it's all over the map, and that was all improv. That was all based on them buying in deeper into the rat side quest. And so we just kept pulling that thread until all of a sudden we were in this really epic moment that I really hadn't planned. But that was them. That was them saying, yeah, I'm going to buy in deeper. I'm going to keep asking questions and keep pushing.
I'd like to use my reaction and build onto this question by asking if what's the biggest moment that you think of where whatever it was that came out of your mouth, you're just like, oh, no. You see the words come out like, this is not going to go the way I think it is.
Oh, man. There's so many, but I think that thinking about this campaign, there's a character who has been introduced in the show, so no real spoilers here. There's a character called Elixio who is just the smarmiest, like worst type of villain, like, high society with a bad comb over, like just annoying, gross guy. And I was excited for him to come into the scene, but the minute they started interacting with them and I realized how gross I had to be and how smarmy I had to be in order to make this, and they were eating it up and we were having fun, but like there was this, it's almost like the French accent thing of like, oh God, I have to keep this up. I've set a precedent. And there was a little bit of regret there in terms of like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be challenging, but it was a lot of
fun. Jimmy.
So you mentioned that the different arcs or campaigns are kind of based on different movies. I was wondering if you could kind of give me an example of some of the movies that you've pulled inspiration from.
100%. I think that one of my one of the things that we did in the pandemic was a little mini series called Evocations, which was backstory episodes for our 3 main characters from our campaign. So we went back in time, we saw them when they were younger, and it was a one-on-one game, which was super rewarding to do. I recommend everybody play a one-on-one game at some point with a player or DM that you trust and love. Those were super fun because each one of those was a very different tone. So for one character, it was a hunting, like kind of in the forest horror movie. And another one, it was a coming of age story and about a young child like facing fear for the first time. And I had Pixar movies in my head and whatnot. And then for another one, it was a straight up like action adventure, like save the town type of thing. And so I don't know that there are specific films that I can say this is exactly the movie I was basing this off of, but the genres for sure. And it's even kind of started to become a point where I'm like, what genre have I not done yet? Buddy cop movie. Let's find a road trip buddy cop type film and let's make a story out of that, or Hallmark cozy films. Like, can we do something with that's actually engaging? And that's been really fun.
Yeah, I pretty much planned it around National Lampoon's Vacation, and that's really panned out pretty well for us so far.
That's valid. I love that.
Tori?
I'm seeing, as we brought up Pokemon a little bit earlier, and I'm seeing some boxed cards and things. And as we do and stalk people on Twitter, I saw a tweet that you posted about wanting to create your own trading card game. So I'm curious, kind of, what's your brainstorming thoughts about that?
Oh gosh, I may have been a few beers deep when I tweeted that one. I mean, trading cards are relatively new for me. I mean, I was into basketball growing up, but relatively recently got into Magic and then Pokemon, and actually found out I like Pokemon better than Magic and stuff. So I think for me, I have a 9-year-old who's super creative and draws comics and stuff, and I would love to do something with him where like he's drawing the art and then I'm making the card. And I mean, come on, it's going to be a Pokemon ripoff. It's not going to, you know, there's only so creative you can be, or at least that I can be. But yeah, something with like, you know, fun childlike monsters. I love the idea of a whole trading card game series with art done by kids. They've done little bits of that in Pokemon and other games. But I'd love to just lean into that and do that.
Cute. So the first watch is that breaking into your the title of your podcast slash show. Sorry, I'm always going to default to podcast slash show.
No,
really
that's
is much of a show. Is that indicative of kind of how the party got together? What's the origin story of the name of the show?
Yeah, so I wanted to evoke a feeling of fantasy adventure. And I was trying to think of what are some of the most universal things that happen in these shows, games, movies, whatever it is. And I really got hung up on this idea of the night, like the watch, right, at night. I couldn't call it the Night's Watch because we've got Game of Thrones and they do
Right.
that. But I really love the visceral image of sitting by a campfire in the dark of the forest and hearing sounds and not knowing what's out there. And it's a little scary. It can be serene at times. Like there's a lot of things that can come with that. And so we were playing with that until we finally came up with the first watch. And then our logo designer, when he did the logo, did this amazing thing where he incorporated the image of an owl and a bow and a dragon and all these cool fantasy things into one logo, which I think kind of mirrors that. Most people see the owl when they see it, and that works for, you know, the first watch as well.
Yeah, Jamie certainly does. Anthony?
Wait, that's not an owl?
No, I see them. I like they've got a good logo. I thought you guys started like as a police procedural, like it was originally a guard police procedural, and then I paid attention. I was like, no, that's not what it is. But now I want to run a police procedural show because
Nice.
that would be a hoot.
But in some regards, I mean, there's similarities there too, right? It's like, you know, your Night's Watch, your watch, you know, your first watch, your first shift or whatnot. Yeah.
There you go, Anthony.
Yeah, so if I believe I heard you correctly, y'all said you started out in person.
We did, yeah.
And so like now are y'all still doing in person? And if not, how's that transition work? Like what VTTs are y'all using? Like how kind of have you made that transition or not made the transition?
Yeah. So yeah, we're all virtual now. We had been able to we recorded our first season, which was very short. It was like 6 episodes in the span of a weekend. We just kind of like pounded them out, did 2 episodes a day for a little while. So I had all that footage when the pandemic hit, and could be releasing that. And then you know, being a filmmaker, that's my day job. I really was focused on quality at first, and I really wanted things to like have a cinematic feel. So we started, you know, trying like those evocations one-on-one games I mentioned. Like we actually set up cameras and recorded ourselves while also like talking via video chat, and then edited the recorded footage together. And it's super great. I was filming miniatures and intercutting that footage in with the battle scenes. It's all super fun and incredibly time consuming. And eventually, you know, got a job, I've got a wife and kids, I've got other hobbies as well. And like, I had to make a tough decision for myself of like, I need to make this more accessible for myself. So that's where we started just going to, you know, we just record via Zoom, and record our audio that way, and, you know, put the edits together. And it's, you know, every once in a while there's a little Zoom glitch or the audio quality is not as nice as I would like it to be. But it's getting out there, and that's better than, you know, not getting edited and just sitting there trying to wrestle with codecs and stuff like that. As far as like other things that we use, so we use Roll20, we use Zoom for our recording, and you know, Discord for chats and when I need to send them stuff and maps and things like that. So it's pretty bare bones.
Cool. Arland?
All right, taking it away from the D&D stuff for going on your Twitter. I seen you seem like a basketball fan. You mentioned you're a basketball fan. You also mentioned you're from Minnesota. I saw that you seem to be mentioning about Timberwolves. Your favorite all-time Minnesota Timberwolves player?
I am not from Minnesota though, so
Okay.
I'm
I
from
saw
a
you
lot of
mentioned also the
places.
Indiana Pacers as well.
Yep.
Are you a
and
Pacers
so
fan?
Well, it's hard to be a Pacers fan some of these years, but yes. No, I'm from Indiana and New Hampshire, and then ended up in Minnesota in 2014. So I'm adopting the Vikings and the Timberwolves. If I got to pick a favorite Timberwolf, we're going Kevin Garnett.
That's
Favorite
the only
Pacer
correct answer.
is going to be Reggie Miller. He was my
I
idol.
hate
growing-
that answer. I hate that answer. Oh, we lost him?
Oh, no, did we lose him?
Oh, we lost him. Yep.
Ah,
Oh, Harlan scared him away.
Harlan was an asshole to him.
He's like,
about
I hate
it,
that
but,
answer.
yeah. Fuck
Click.
you, buddy.
There was one correct
Harlan
answer.
kicked him off after he said
Yeah.
Reggie Miller. That's messed up, bro.
Yeah.
Listen,
Wow.
You hate Reggie Miller
one
that
correct
much?
answer,
Oof.
and he was right with Kevin Garnett. I knew when he said Pacers, he was going to say Reggie Miller, and we were going to have a verbal fight.
And you kicked him off. You unplugged his computer.
Yeah.
Reached through the internet.
Oh, wait,
call
wait,
and
wait.
cancel his internet.
He's over there in Minnesota. It's a snowstorm. Probably that's what lost his connection. Oh, he came back and then
Yeah.
bounced again.
No, he's back.
Oh, he's
No,
there.
He's back. He's
Yeah.
here. What? Now I gotta get us back into initiative.
audio.
order.
We don't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Oh,
We
no,
don't hear you.
that's okay. I got time to mess around with this. That means boop. All right, everybody's back. Another reason why we don't use Zoom and Streamlabs as much as we typically would.
All right, am I back now?
You're
You
back
are back.
now.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Sorry about
Harlan
that. You're
kicked
right.
you
It
out because
probably
he
was
didn't
a
like Reggie
snowstorm.
Miller.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a New York Knicks fan, so
Oh!
the name
Yeah.
Reggie Miller
Triggers you, yes.
it hurts. The
Oh,
name
yeah.
Reggie Miller hurts.
Oh
So-
yeah, I had very big ears when I was a kid, very sticky out ones, and he did too. And I was just like, "You're my man. You're my favorite player." But no, I'll watch the Timberwolves. I like going to their games. Pacers, I love them, but they break your heart every year. So
I'm
know
an
about
expert. I understand about heartbreaking. I understand.
we
It
can
happens.
commiserate on the heartbreak. That's for sure.
We can. Jordan has made both of our lives somewhat hell.
Yeah. All right, Jamie.
So you got some Pokemon stuff in the background. Are there any other games, like video games, that you play, or mostly Pokemon card game?
No, I have a very kind of on again, off again relationship with video games. I'll hyper focus and binge something, and then I won't play for 6 months. Some of my favorites are Fallout 4, Skyrim. I'm playing through Breath of the Wild for the first time right now.
Nice.
Stray was surprisingly amazing. That just came out recently. I love the vibes
Mhm.
of that game, where you play as a little post-apocalyptic
Little cat.
cat.
Yeah.
And then The Last of Us, which I'm now watching the show, which just came out, and gotta
Nice.
love that as well. So yeah.
Yeah, my daughter just started playing The Last of Us. Has
Oh,
not
man.
played a ton of video games beyond like The Sims. She's more of like a sim, like Stardew Valley and stuff like that. And having to explain to her, like, you run away from those
Yeah.
things.
Yep.
It's a heavy game.
Don't fight
yeah,
'em,
it
you
is.
run.
Yeah, it is. I will tell you, like it's the first time I've ever seen her and her brother really cooperate at anything. I'm
Oh,
like,
that's cool.
she's probably not old enough to watch this with her, but they're getting along. I'll pay for the trauma later.
Right.
Tori?
I had 3 competing questions in my head. Mr. Turner really sounded like he was going to continue that story and abruptly stopped and said my name.
Yeah. You got to be prepared for the sneak attack. It is the whole
Ah.
theme
Man.
of the show.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Is there something as a collector? Every time I say this, it makes me sound like a serial killer. I'm basically avoiding.
I'm sorry.
I'm avoiding the word hoarder, but as somebody that
Yeah.
likes to have lots of things and loves their things, I'm curious, what's your favorite thing to have and to maybe you like go out and about and you're like, I have to go have that. And I'm not condoning steal. What things do you like?
The hair
Okay,
of
goodbye.
strangers.
Wow. So many terrifying windows into Tori being slit open right now. So many scary. Like my first victim skull was my favorite.
What kind of trophies do you keep?
So the Corinthian, bullshit or your hero? Do tell.
I have to be careful how I phrase my answer so that I
Oh
don't
my God,
add
no.
to the horror moviness of this. The way I collect is a little bit like the way I engage with any of my hobbies, is in that I like to get good enough to feel competent, but then I never like master anything.
Mhm.
And so with collecting, like I don't own a ton of like super valuable stuff. Like probably the most expensive card in my collection is like $80, and like, you know, compared to somebody who's got $500 cards or something like that.
Oh, when I
I
mean
do
collector,
just-
I fully mean hoarder, like goblin. What makes you happy? Not
Yeah,
me seeing
yeah.
money. Look at my beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What I think what makes me the happiest are silly things. Things that are maybe a little goofy, but like they still, so like on the shelf here, we've got some Fallout bobbleheads.
Mhm.
We've got some really old Star Trek figures. The Picard one, I'm gonna grab it. Hold on.
Yes, there.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the stuff of nightmares.
There you
Right
go.
Oh,
here.
man.
Like it's
Yeah.
all disproportioned. The hands are super weird. I love this thing to death. Like anything
that is
that
90s
makes me
merchandising
feel
at
that
its
bit of
best, yeah.
nostalgia.
Yeah. Pre McFarlane Toys merchandising, where it was just like, man, anything's a step up from the Star Wars figures. You would get some weird looking action figures. So,
Right.
but
So yeah, if I'm out and about, I'll impulse buy a pack of Pokemon cards or something. Pins as well. I like the little enamel pins. I'll grab those if I find them too.
yeah, I hear people really like pins and would like to buy a lot of them, especially if they were branded about our show. If only we had somebody working on that, Harlan. So
Shots fired.
speaking of merch, do you guys, obviously you've got your show up on YouTube. Do you guys have a Patreon? Do you do merch? What's kind of the monetization just sounds mercenary, but I mean, like, let's be honest, the monetization side of it. All right. Do you guys have merch? Do you do the Patreon? What's that dimension of your show look like?
We have a very small Redbubble shop. I have a couple things I need to still put up on there with a couple t-shirts and things like that. We don't really sell merch. We don't really monetize anything right now. I made a decision very early on that I didn't want any of our content to be behind a paywall. Mostly because, like, as much as I love it, I hate the fact that I would have to pay for Dimension 20. And I get why it is. Like, that's valid. That's your business model. Like, I'm not knocking it, but just for me as a consumer, like, I didn't want to add to that. Nor did I think that we had an audience big enough to warrant it. So yeah, it's kind of just a problem we haven't had to worry about yet, and I'm okay to not worry about it.
Cool. Anthony?
Looking at like some of y'all's art and things, I'm really digging this turtle image I keep seeing, but like I want to know as a DM, which character is your favorite?
Yeah. The Turtle's a close one. So so in our first season, my wife is a player, and she plays that Turtle,
Oh, that's cool.
Sikia Thonthway, the Turtle Arcana cleric. Love that character, childlike innocence and wonder in the face of a lot of horror and a lot of challenge. Selfishly, my favorite character is my self-insert NPC, and I have actually gotten to play him as a character in one of our one-shots that was DM'd by Connie Chang. And his name is Hoki Mukreb. And he is a halfling artificer wizard who is just scatterbrained and a little abrasive, but incredibly curious. That's his defining characteristic. He'll always ask another question. And it's so much fun to play because it's a little burst of chaos into any game if he shows up as an NPC. And I found when I played him as a player, incredibly high energy, and like it takes a lot out of you to maintain that energy throughout a whole game. But super, super fun.
Cool. Harlan?
All right. You said you are a filmmaker by trade. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite, see, I'm going to sound stuck up or snobbish here. My favorite movie is called The Third Man. It's a film starring Joseph Cotten and Orson Welles. It's from 1963 or 64, I think. Black and white film. It's set in post-World War II when like Vienna was being split up by a bunch of different countries. And it's a murder mystery story and a film noir story set in there. The entire movie is scored with the zither, and it gives it this really weird feel, but that works beautifully. So it's kind of these darker themes, but then it's got this like almost banjo-esque type sound to everything. It's sort of like European banjo sound to everything, and it's a fascinating movie. It has some of the best quotes of any old film I've ever seen, and that's my favorite.
You won me. You won me over calling the zither European banjo. Like I'm here for it. That is both such an apt and charming description of it. So, Harlan, do you have a bonus action there?
I want to hear if it's got one. This so quotable. Give us a quote.
I won't do this word perfect, but one of the characters, when talking to another character about how he shouldn't worry about kind of stepping on other people and like taking advantage, and is trying to help him kind of get over his morality to some degree. And this is Orson Welles' character. He says, in Switzerland, they had 200 years or whatever it was of peace, or what did no sorry, he starts elsewhere. He's like, in such and such country, they had 200 years of war, they had revolutions, and they produced some of the greatest artists and poets and whatnot of our time, Michelangelo, whatever. In Switzerland, they had the same amount of peace and prosperity and brotherly love. And what did they produce? The cuckoo clock. And then he just walks off. And I'm like, that's cold, but also incredibly funny.
Jamie?
I'm going to continue pulling questions from the stuff in your background. What is your favorite X-Men?
My favorite X-Men is Nightcrawler.
That's a good answer.
And I love Alan Cummings' portrayal of him in X-Men 2. I'm a religious person, and not that religious people need representation, but comics is not a place where you obviously see a lot of pro-religion. So I like that Nightcrawler's Catholic and that he's unapologetic about it, and that factors it, that wrestling of faith and what's going on in the world and being a mutant kind of all comes together. I think he's a really fascinating character with some badass powers.
That's why I've always liked Daredevil as a character,
Yeah,
because of the
close
duality
second.
of his religion versus the job that he does and things like that. That's always, I've always been a fan of Daredevil because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, Daredevil's Catholicism's been baked into him pretty much since the Frank Miller's days.
Yep.
Nightcrawler's kind of forward-facing Catholicism is definitely an artifact of late 90s, early aughts.
Yep.
It wasn't as present with the character, because I am more familiar with the swashbuckling
Excalibur.
Excalibur. Look, Excalibur is my favorite X-Men comic. Like that run of early, like 1 to 65, 1 to 75 cross time capers, completely continuity free, except for the weird tie-ins to old Captain Britain comics, because I'm a sucker for B and C tier heroes. Is peak, not Silveresti. God, Jim Starlin was the artist, and the guy who wrote all the X-Men. Claremont, yeah, it's just peak Claremont Silveresti, and it is it is choice. But I mean, Alan Cummings can do no wrong. He is certainly a fantastic actor. Tori?
And I'll reaction or something real quick if I
can. Look at that.
Because Tori, you asked earlier what my favorite thing to pick up was, and I brain farted on this because one, I collect comics as well, and I specifically collect #1 issues. So if I'm anywhere, like I won't even need to I'll just pick up whatever that is, #1. And my favorite personal piece that I have is the 1990 #1 reissue of X-Men, and I have all 4 comic cover variants as well as the fold out version that has all 4 together.
Nice.
And I need to get that framed, but that's my favorite thing I own.
Cool. That's cool. And it's my turn, and I'm ready. If you could live in a movie, what movie would you live in?
Oh man.
So you don't have to even be a main character or anything. You're in that universe.
Sure.
That movie is happening. It's not just like any point in the universe. The movie's happening.
See, now here's the interesting thing that you say movie and not just like IP or something, because I'll go The Lord of the Rings and I'll go Hobbiton, because in the movie the Shire is not scourged. And so I get all the benefits of Hobbiton, but I don't have to live through the orcs.
Even in the extended edition, I thought the scourging was in like the extended edition.
There's a scene when he's looking in Galadriel's mirror, where he sees what could happen, but it doesn't actually ever happen in the movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your take then? Are you're a big Tolkien guy at all, or you're just a fan of the Shire?
Yeah, I'm a big Tolkien guy. I'm certainly not someone who can recite all the genealogies of the elves, but I grew up reading them, and I do love them. Yeah. Good
for you. We are very happy that you aren't one of those people. Rings of Power. What's your take then, both as a filmmaker and a Tolkien guy?
As a filmmaker, I think it's gorgeous. I think that it did a really good job of trying to aspire for that sense of fully realized world that Jackson was able to do with the films.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I think as a Tolkien fan, I bring the same mentality I bring to Rings of Power that I brought to Lord of the Rings, which was I have to set the books aside. If I'm going to sit here and just open my book and try to compare, I'm going to have a real bad time.
Yeah.
But if I set this aside and I go, I love this vibe, I love this world, I love these characters, like let's just let them tell their story, then I have a great time watching.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly well. I have read Lord of the Rings, and I don't know that I could make it. I read The Hobbit, but man, there was one of them I couldn't make it through. And enjoyed the Peter Jackson movies when they first came out. They have not stood the test of time for me very well, but the man, I really dug the Rings of Power. I think it was incredibly well produced and incredibly well acted. So, Anthony.
I actually polled the audience for questions, and Draken came up with one that I want to know the answer to, which is, what's the worst Star Wars movie, and why is it The Last Jedi?
It's The Rise of Skywalker. That's the worst Star Wars movie.
That is the correct answer. That is the correct answer, Drew. You don't need to follow up. Very good. Gold star. You're my favorite guest.
And I will say, like, in my opinion, all Star Wars is good Star Wars. Like, I'll watch The Rise of Skywalker if that's all that's on. But it won't be my first choice.
Garbage Star Wars out there.
It will not be my first choice. I will say maybe the holiday special doesn't quite fit that sentiment, but everything else I've enjoyed to some degree.
The prequels are hot garbage. I
will argue with you on that one, but that's another podcast.
That's a whole nother podcast. We are happy to have you back and do the full deep dive about why they are so terrible. Why they are a filmmaker unchecked by power, or anybody going, yeah, George, we shouldn't do that. That's got a lot of, just no. Let's hey man, there are some broad brushes you shouldn't paint characters with.
That part, yes.
like several, like half of them. They're too problematic at least. Let alone my midichlorians. Harland.
You said you have a 9-year-old son
and a 6-year-old daughter. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have you introduced them to D&D yet?
I have, and it was both an exhilarating and frustrating experience, because I don't know if any of you have played with young children, but you can't expect them to know the rules or go anything by the rules. But as soon as you set that aside and go, look, we're just going to play make-believe here with a little bit of structure, it was super great. My son played for a few games, he played a Goliath warrior named Magic Big Girl. And her thing is she would blacksmith things. That was his word for creating something. I would like to blacksmith a giant armor automaton. I'm like, you're level 1, dude. Like, sure, whatever.
Yep. Roll for blacksmithing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's man. They will come up with some of the most bizarrely creative. They will take some giant swings if you're playing with your kids. And if you haven't had the opportunity to do that, anybody who ends up listening to this at some point, I cannot recommend it enough. Because one, they will take giant swings, and two, they don't know all the secrets like everybody else does. So you can you are the most creative person they've ever met. Everything works. Jamie, I think we're on Jamie.
Yeah. So has everything that you've done with the show been D&D, and if so, is there any other game systems that you'd be interested in exploring outside of D&D for future content?
That's a great question. 2 things we've done have been outside D&D. One sort of, one for sure. We did a one-shot with the folks who created the system and the world of Wildevere. And so that's on our channel, and that's a different game system. And I got to play in that when the creator ran the game. That was super fun. It's actually a very, it's good for anybody, but it's a very kid-friendly system. So if I was going to start a campaign with my children, I'd probably use that system for it. And then our show, The Inn at the Edge of Greenwood, which is more of a pure podcast. There's no visual aspects to that. That is D&D set. People mention D&D things, but we don't roll any dice. There's no mechanics. It's truly meant to just be a role play experience. That's our one that's a little bit more like the Cozy Hallmark type thing. It's a storytelling podcast where, for instance, one of you would come on in character as your character from this show.
wouldn't want that.
and
Trust me.
visit the inn and interact with the innkeeper and tell a story of your adventures.
That you want me to tell you how that goes? 5 minutes in, somebody's getting thrown out of the inn. That ends like whether it's 5 minutes or 50. That ends with a forcible ejection of a character, guaranteed.
Due to a table being flipped or a door being
Yep,
kicked.
yep, there it is. Yep,
Yeah.
Harlan's a 5-minuter. Is that an Ed Greenwood reference? Just out of curiosity, is that an Ed
It is
Greenwood?
not. No.
Okay. Because I did see that, and I was like, that'd be a good cut. I'm gonna give you credit, Drew, and say that's an Ed Greenwood call out.
I wish, yeah. No, I started to write a book, and I
Oh.
wanted to write a book about an innkeeper who was just kind of at this remote inn in his day in the life and very slice of life. And I never got past the first few pages, and then came back to it a year later and was like, well, what if I use this for the show? So yeah.
Yeah, I think there is I'm sure somebody has written this out there somewhere, but the innkeeper that runs the inn that all the adventurers hang out at, the story from his perspective, I am sure would be an interesting live stream to do as a guest show. Tori?
Yeah. I just in that whole I was so enraptured. I just wrote down Magic Big Girl. Just creating my backup character. Don't worry. Don't mind me.
Somebody's got a new roller derby name.
Hey, I'm thinking about trying out later this year.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, so he called it.
You know what? What would be your roller derby name? What's your pun tough name?
Oh my gosh. God, all I can think of is stupid stuff like Fritz McGill or something really, really weird like that.
Scooter McGillicuddy. Scooter McGillicuddy. I'm calling it right now.
Something with Knuckles in the name. I like the idea of Knuckles something or other. In there.
Knuckles
I like
Deep?
Knuckles
No,
something.
yeah,
or
they'll
other.
go.
No, not
Yeah,
Knuckles Deep.
something or other. There we go. Yeah.
Knuckles Deep.
All right. Shit, that's background to me. So you're a full-time filmmaker in your day job. Is that the case?
Yeah.
Is that for just broader film production, or is it more on the commercial side? Kind of what's the scope of that?
Yeah, it's more on the commercial side. I've done a little bit of everything, but I've been with a company now for the last several years that works doing video production for school districts.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
it's really awesome. So we get to work with kids, we get to work with teachers, we get to help share their stories out there. And yeah, I mean, out of all the corporate filmmaking gigs you could have, I like where I've landed. Yeah.
My wife has been in the educational publishing or educational services industry for pretty much as long as I've known her. She worked at Scholastic when we first met.
Nice.
And there's some really cool creative positions out there in that subset of an industry that you just don't know exist until you get into it.
Right.
But yeah, there's some really fun and cool stuff out there. So awesome, man. Anthony?
Appreciate the transition, Turner. I was going to ask a film question. So as a filmmaker, so this is, I guess, two question or action and reaction. Like, what camera and kind of glass are you like normally using for just kind of your normal shoots, and Money No Object? What camera and lens combo are you going with?
I'm not as much of a gearhead as I used to be, but we use the Canon C200s with the Rokinon prime lens kits. And for anyone who knows anything about cameras, Rokinon you should check out, because it's like really good, like not Zeiss level, but pretty close for way cheaper. So it's a great kit. And I love it. It's a very warm image. For me, Money No Object, I'd go back to film. So when I went to film school, I shot my senior project on 16 millimeter. Which was both a horrifying and expensive process, but also like I still go back to that thing I made at the very beginning of my career and go, that looks pretty. Like film just looks great. And I like 16 millimeter in particular. So, early seasons of The Walking Dead were shot on 16 mil because it just looked better with the special effects. And there's a cool quality to it that just has a little bit of history, but that's what I would do.
Cool.
That's cool.
Was that the reaction too, Anthony? You good?
Yeah, it was the two different.
What he's
camera
using and what's it?
I see. Arlen?
Yeah, I'm gonna just use the dodge action and just gonna pass that one to
pass
the question to Jamie.
Man, you
it
couldn't
wasn't
make
me
it all
first.
through.
No,
Yes.
the no look, my Magic Johnson no
Yeah.
look.
Oh, all right. Jamie?
I was also gonna dodge, but I'm not gonna salvage
You
it.
can't back
and,
to back, man. You
I,
can't
I
back to
know,
back.
I know. So let's see.
He
how
dodges
about
with advantage.
music? How about music? What kind of music are you into?
I like a lot of early 2000s. I like 80s punk. I like stuff that's got not like fully electronic, but it has a little bit of a vibe. So like some like Postal Service, Static Age stuff from early 2000s.
I dig that.
Yeah, a little bit. I like lo-fi. My son, so my son is autistic and he doesn't like a lot of music, but he loves 21 Pilots for some reason. And I can get with that. So we listened to a little bit. We were actually just playing that album before this, and dancing to it. So
That's awesome.
Just real quick follow up on that. Music on the show. Are you scoring your episodes, or how do you guys work music into your show?
So my friend Joe, who is a cinematographer and a DT player, he's also a composer. He's the most talented man I know, and it infuriates me. He writes all the intro sequences for our shows. So pretty much every intro sequence was written by him, minus the Inn at the Edge of Greenwood, which was written and recorded by another friend on violin. And the early shows, he was scoring the full episodes.
Mhm.
And much like me with not being able to keep up with the editing of these high production things, like he couldn't keep scoring hours of footage. So we now use kind of like soundtracks and soundscapes to set mood. But any intro theme that you're hearing throughout our stuff was probably composed by Joe Frank.
Cool. Tori, and then after this, guys, we'll do a one more quick lightning round through, and then we'll throw it over to Drew to ask us a question. So, Tori.
So kind of towards the beginning of our chat, everyone was talking about their different associations with the first watch and watches and first watch. So my brain immediately went to the breakfast restaurant. If anyone's familiar, there's
I am.
breakfast
Yeah.
first
Yep.
watch.
I know where this is going. I have an answer for this. Yes.
So just give me your breakfast. What's your breakfast?
I don't eat it often, but when I do, I like to go all out. I like bacon, scrambled eggs, waffles, not pancakes, not a pancake guy, and hash browns. If it doesn't have hash browns, I really don't want to have a conversation.
Crispy or just
Extra
as
crispy.
they are? Extra
Yeah,
crispy? You putting stuff on top, you getting them smothered and
Hot sauce. Yeah.
hot sauce.
Hot sauce. You
Alright.
got to wake up right. Yeah.
There you go. All right,
Hot sauce
gang.
or ketchup on your eggs? That's my reaction.
Hot sauce for sure.
Okay.
I'm not a ketchup guy. Like I'll have it if it's there, but it's cold. Ugh.
Real quick poll of the podcast so I can know who I need to hate. Is anybody here a ketchup and eggs person?
Fuck no.
Hell no.
It's my
Don't,
culture.
don't
so go
desecrate
ahead.
eggs with
It's my
ketchup.
culture.
Don't
It's,
desecrate eggs with ketchup.
it's part of my culture. So
All right. All right.
No.
If
I
you're
don't
gonna play
know.
that card. All right. Lightning round then. Anthony.
So in honor of our missing member, the window liquor, I noticed you had stogies and whiskey. So what's your whiskey of choice?
Something double barreled aged is going to be it. There's I forget the name of it right now, but yeah, the more numbers it has, double, triple aged or whatnot, the
All the age.
all the
age.
age. Yes,
Harlan.
my whiskey old as hell.
You mentioned comic books. And I think you said your favorite number one. You said you collect number ones, right?
Yeah.
Did you say your favorite number one that you?
Yeah,
have?
the 1990 X-Men.
This doesn't
when
count
they
as your question,
redid the
Harlan.
numbering. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
All right. I'm
read.
just
Yeah.
okay.
You're
My
struggling with the
other
concept
favorite
of
though,
lightning
my other
round.
favorite is
This
the
will
number
not
one
count
of
either.
the Miles Morales Spider-Man issue, and I have it both in opened and in the little. I have it sealed in the little sleeve bag it came with.
Okay.
That does
If
not
it doesn't count,
Harlan.
give me
Yeah,
your favorite.
You need to answer. You need to ask a question. Like a real
Give me your
question.
favorite character. Favorite character in any genre.
Oh, gosh, this is supposed to be the lightning round, but you're gonna make me think.
In any genre.
he's the one that asked, "What's your
He-
favorite movie?"
Yeah,
just
he
trying.
You done broke the lightning round already.
You know, I'm
The
gonna
filmmaker
go...
has their favorite movie. That's why I asked him. I know that.
Yeah, we know it was a softball. We got it. That's what Tori was saying.
I'm gonna go with, even though he's not my favorite X-Men, I'm gonna go with Magneto. I think he's a really fascinating guy, and not always right, not always wrong, and
But-
it's a really, really interesting character to write. And I think Ian, Ian McKellen,
yeah.
did a great job playing
That-
him, and yeah,
That's funny because like I was going through my comic books because you said it, and this is one of my favorite comic books.
yes,
It's Magneto Testament.
yep,
It was a 5 run with Marvel Knights about Magneto's backstory. One of my favorites that I've
so
read.
good, so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth in Magneto's backstory. Just depends on whether or not they want Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver to be mutants or not that particular week.
Right.
Jamie, lightning round question.
Okay, so what is the character class that you least like having in the party when you were DMing, and why is it Rogue?
Monk.
Oh, it's
Monk. Stunning Strike is
I
so
understand that,
ridiculous.
yeah.
I all you monks out there, I get why you like it. More power to you. As a DM, there's nothing more frustrating.
Good answer.
Good answer. Tori, wrap us up.
Favorite Pokemon.
Favorite Pokemon, Snorlax. I specifically collect Snorlax, and I love him.
Have you
Very
seen
nice.
this at Target? That's like $30 with the squishiest pillow that's like this big.
Yep,
Oh,
yep. It very much fits the Hobbit vibe too. It's like if I had to be a Pokemon, I would be a Snorlax. Well, I'd also be a Hobbit. So I just want to sleep
you
and
go.
eat. That's it.
There you go. I think there's a third activity you can work into that. All right, Drew. Question for the cast.
Okay, so what is your favorite dump stat to play?
Oh,
And
very nice.
maybe a
very
quick
nice.
example of how you've brought that dump stat to light in a fun either role play or combat moment.
Very nice, Anthony.
So when you say like it's a stat I've
What
put
like
at the
a
bottom,
stat that's
and
low
I'm
that you
and
enjoy
how I
playing.
played it.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
and like I
Yeah.
enjoy playing that stat when it's low. Okay, I
Yeah.
got you. Okay.
50% of the cast will be able to answer this question well, and they will be the first and last people. The two guys in the middle, we'll see how they do.
I think I tend to like dumping charisma, like, and that being the one kind of
Yeah.
you can do that in a lot of different ways. You can do that just as an appearance, you can do that in personality, you can do that. So I think that one really kind of gives you a lot of story liberty or character liberty with that. So I think that one's the kind of the funnest one to really kind of play with. As far as just it being naturally low as a part of the character.
Nice. Yeah.
Listen, I don't know enough. I'm dumping Ant. My character is about
Tracks.
he's about the business.
I don't know enough. I'm dumping it.
I'm dumping it.
It's the walk away mic drop statement. Unintentionally. I don't know enough. I'm dumping it.
I'm dumping
Next
it.
player.
You tell me I gotta pick a character and what stats does he need? Does he need dexterity? Yes. Does he need strength? Yes. Does people need to like him? Charisma? Yes. Does he need to be smart? Nope. Not at all. Doesn't have to be smart at all. If I've got the
Harlan's
rest of
character is
that,
like 3 steps away
intelligence
from
goes out the
Ogre
window.
on Revenge of the Nerds, for the record. For the record.
I'm just saying.
Jamie. I take it back. Great fucking answer, Harlan. Not intentionally, but great answer.
I too was gonna say charisma because I played my character just like a total douche.
That's
and
true.
that's just very, very much in line with my stats.
Yeah, very, 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 very
Yeah.
true. Tori?
I had to pull up some of my character sheets because I couldn't think of anything in particular, and was hoping there was something more interesting. But I primarily play casters, and just strength just ended up being the dump stat. But in thinking of how that's really come into play, I think is just avoiding using it at all to where no one knows.
Yeah, you hide it. Yeah, I
Yep.
love that.
Be really intimidating from very far away.
And casters don't need strength until all of a sudden you go up against a beholder and they turn your magic off.
You
Or
have to like
or
peel
walls.
a rope,
Walls.
you're asked to climb the rope
Walls.
in genocide.
climb a tree.
Which has
Sage.
happened. And was a really a peer pressure moment. It was completely unnecessary. And
He
it's one of
didn't
the
want
hallmarks
to
of our
at
shows.
all.
Yeah, no, you guys bullied the shit out of him. So it's toxic, but what are you gonna do? Like I don't get to play a ton. I've gotten to play 2 characters, I think, in the last, and both of them were low wisdom guys. One was a monk that I was playing as a fantasy flat earther, and another one was an ex-military Fey warlock who was in the closet about being a Fey warlock, and played it all off that his spear was magical, except for the whole magical girl transformation sequence and all the glitter that he was constantly surrounded by. But both of them extremely gullible, and I like there is a not dumb but gullible shithead that I like out of a low wisdom character. But and charisma has traditionally been, I think, the longest running dump stat for most characters. And I think, and I don't know, I haven't done the cross. I haven't dove enough back into 3.5 or looked at 4 to see when this advent really happened from a stat bonus, but tying charisma to certain casting stats and as a force of will concept, I think is probably one of the better developments since 2nd edition that they have managed to do from a game design standpoint. So
I love having stupid high charisma and then just as a role player not being super charismatic and just doing checks that are just like, I guess they're so confused that they are into it.
Well, look,
we've received that so many times.
There are people out there, we've all met some of them, that are just incredibly magnetic but thoroughly unfucking likable. So you can definitely play that person that just has that force of personality. Like I think charisma is probably, because it is typically seen as an aspect of personality or looks, the easiest stat to role play, just kind of off the rip, because it's, which puts it in a really weird place stat wise. I think it's, I think really, I don't know. I think long term, it's one that I would like to see kind of wither away as a stat and become more of just a role playing aspect, because I do think it sets up some weird scenarios from an overall design standpoint. But I doubt they're going to drop the traditional stat spread anytime soon.
Well, it's that age-old thing of, well, you're not going to make me do a backflip in real life. I can just roll for it. So why am I having to convince you in real life? Shouldn't I just be able to roll for it? So
well,
I see that argument.
And look, for characters in the game, like, look, I don't make somebody in a home game. I don't make somebody try and make a convincing argument before they do a persuasion check or an intimidation check. I do on the show because I know it's going to produce some ridiculous shit. I mean, let's be honest. Like there's a big difference between, hey, what you have to do in the game and what you can do. And if it is a home game situation and somebody really busts out with some, with a soliloquy that is inspiring, then that's what advantage is there for. That's what inspiration is there for. But okay, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Drew, thank you so much for your time and for really answering the broad spread of questions and letting us pick apart every little thing. Look, guys, for future, if you come on the show and you've got a shelf behind you, we're going to talk about that shelf. We are going to talk about that shelf. So just be prepared at any given time. We absolutely appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. Everybody in chat, thanks for coming in. As always, hope you enjoyed the show. Make stream end.